Alright, so we're going to take a look at Level 1C, which is Reflection and Goal Setting. And this is going to be found in your Google Classroom, where all of our information is. And there is an announcement in our stream about reflection and goal setting expectations. So let's start with the expectations. So the way we're going to do our reflection and goal setting throughout the year is using Seesaw, which is an app or website that we can go to do this, which I will show you in the next part of this section in the grid. But right now let's talk about the expectations of what you're going to be doing when you're using Seesaw for your reflection and goal setting. So like I said, this will always be in our Google Classroom, so in case you ever forget what questions you're supposed to be answering during your reflection, you can always go to our stream and find reflection and goal setting expectations. And if it's not at the top, you can always scroll down to find where it would be. So when we reflect, we're going to answer the bold questions that are listed here. And you can see there's three. There's one at the beginning here and two lower down. And you're going to choose at least one more question to answer. So you're going to have a total of 4 questions that you're answering every day when you do your reflection and goal setting. It could be more if you have several different questions you want to answer, but remember you're only required to do at least one more other than the bolded questions. So there's 3 bolded questions and at least one more you need to do. So for the bolded questions, the first one here is, what did you work on today? So this could just be explaining briefly, what did you do? So were you working on level 1D? For example. Now don't just tell me level 1D, because that doesn't give us a lot of information, especially because this goes to parents as well when we use Seesaw. They don't necessarily know what level 1D covered. So make sure you're being specific as to what you were learning about that day. Like today, for example, if you're getting to this part before the end of class, you could reflect on how you learned about the reflection expectations. So you know now what questions you're supposed to answer, that you need to at least pick one of your own questions to answer from the list. So make sure you're being specific about what you worked on that day. It doesn't have to be long, but you do want to be specific when you're talking about what you worked on for that day. The next bold question you have to answer every day is, did you fully understand the information you focused on today? So, when we're talking about that, we want to make sure we know that we 100% mastered whatever it was that we were working on that day. And if you didn't, that's okay. This is your time to reflect. So maybe there was a concept that you didn't fully understand that you need to maybe ask a teacher or ask a friend the next day in order to fully understand whatever that information was. If you did fully understand it, then briefly tell me about what you learned. That can kind of go along with the question up here. Then you have new goal that you have to set for yourself. And this could be a goal that you set for the very next class period, or it could be a goal that you set for yourself by the end of the week. Now, we don't want this goal to be something that is going to take us too long to achieve, so try and not go any further than 5 days, because we want it to be something that we're keeping consistent with. It's a short-term goal. And so you need to tell us the what, when, and how of that goal. So what is the goal that you're going to work on? Are you going to try and take your assessment the next day at the beginning of the class period? Are you going to try and finish a certain part of a level? So are you going to try and get 2 sections of a level done? Are you going to work with a partner about something? So whatever your goal is, when are you going to work on that goal? So maybe there's a time when you're going to actually work on this at home for a little bit. Maybe you were so close to finishing a goal, and in order to be able to take the assessment the next day, you want to finish a little bit that night. So maybe your goal is to finish level 1D so that you can move on to the assessment for that's in level 1E. So when you're going to do that? Well, maybe you're going to do it that night at home. Or maybe you're going to do your goal the next class period. Or maybe you have time in tutorial before your math class and you'll get a chance to do something in tutorial And that could be when you do it. And then you're also going to tell us the how. So maybe the how is, tonight I'm going to get out my laptop, get out my packet, and I'm going to accomplish whatever it is you're going to accomplish. Okay? Or maybe how is going to be asking a teacher for help on a concept before you can finish that section of the grid. Lots of different ways to answer that, but we want to know the what, the when, and the how for your new goal, and we want that to be a short-term goal that you are going to be able to reach within the next day or maybe a couple days. So then you have a choice between one more question to answer when you're doing your reflection and goal setting. So those are these gray questions here that you have to choose from. You only have to choose at least one. So maybe you could talk about how did your work session go. So maybe you're having an awesome day and you just flew through a bunch. So maybe you could talk about how you worked on 3 different sections of the grid today. And so you had a really strong work session that went really well. Or maybe you were able to complete an assessment and you felt strongly about that. Or, we have bad days too, and so maybe you had some struggles this work session. Maybe you had a lot of questions that you had to get answered by someone. Or maybe you didn't feel so strong about an assessment that you took. Or maybe you had a rough night the night before or a rough morning, and so you just had to do a little less work than normal. So tell us how your work session went. That's one that you could choose. Another one you could choose is what went well today and what could have gone better. So that's similar to this one, but a little bit more of a kind of a glow and a grow. Something you did well, something that could have gone better. And so that's kind of answering those 2 questions. And then another one down here is, why is this a strong goal? So that could relate to whatever your goal is and why you think that's a strong goal for you. So let's say you had trouble with one of your work times the day before, and so your goal was to, or that day, and your goal is to try and ask more questions and get more accomplished the next day. Well, then explain why that's a strong goal for you. Is that a strong goal because you had a difficult time and so you think it's a strong goal to push yourself the next day? It could be a lot of different things. And you can talk about how can we help you to accomplish this goal? So is there someone that could help you, whether it's me or whether it's a peer? How can we help you accomplish this goal? What would you need from someone? And that's all good feedback for us to have to know how our sessions went and how our goals are strong or how we may need help to accomplish them. So those are the questions. The bold ones are the ones you have to answer every single time, and then you choose one of these other ones to answer. It could be the same one each day, it could be a different one, or maybe even choose more than one. Now, the time that we're going to do this is we will always have at least 5 minutes at the end of class to do this in Seesaw. So you really want to make sure that you're not spending too much time because you have at least 4 questions to answer. And we only have about 5 minutes to do it. Now, if you don't quite finish, you can always finish a little bit later, but we want to try and keep these reflections quick and efficient. So we will always have those 5 minutes at the end to do that. Make sure your answers are clear and specific, and that you're setting goals that are attainable within about a day, maybe the end of the week, so that way you're keeping those goals short-term and fresh. You don't always have to do this just at the end of class. There are also times where you might do this at home or in tutorial, but anytime you do math, you should be reflecting at the end to see what you did. So let's say you do some time in tutorial where you're doing math. Make sure you do a reflection on how that work session went. So anytime you work on math and you have a work time session, make sure you're reflecting and setting goals for next time.